Hi everyone, and welcome to week 4, the final week of this short REBT course, which aims to improve psychological well-being and performance for sales professionals. Last week we discussed how, when faced with adversity, irrational beliefs can cause unhelpful negative emotions that move us further away from our goals. We also looked at how disputing irrational beliefs and changing these to more logical, helpful and rational ones can lead to healthier negative emotions, which help us to improve our well-being and perform better too. For last week's homework task, you should have completed the Irrational Performance Beliefs Inventory, IPBI, and should have gained a better understanding of yourself in the process, and what areas you might want to continue working on following the end of this short course. Did you score considerably higher in any of the key domains, i.e. demandingness, low frustration tolerance, awfulizing, or global depreciation? You can use this IPBI to measure your progress at any time in the future if you wish to continue working for self-development. To help you with some of these development areas, today we'll be introducing you to some popular evidence-based REBT disputation strategies, which will help you to challenge irrational beliefs and irrational language. REBT gives you more of an awareness of internal dialogues, beliefs and emotional responses to problems at work or in your personal life. As you are aware by now, it is a clinical approach, but it is used in non-clinical settings too, and it brings a greater awareness of the power of language and how it shapes the perceptions we make. As you can see here, some common irrational beliefs are: I want, therefore I must have; I must be thoroughly competent at all times or else I'm incompetent; things must be comfortable and not frustrating, or life is awful; you must behave as I think you ought to, or else something's wrong with you; you must treat me with respect and kindness, or you're a bad person who should be punished. Hopefully you're starting to become more sensitive to language and better able to identify irrational language used by yourself or others. Maybe you can notice when people are depreciating themselves or others by thinking they are completely bad or a failure, or recognizing absolute I must statements as over-demanding. The key is to consciously and deliberately thought stop and replace our inflexible demands with realistic preferences instead, to restructure our negative automatic thoughts with healthy, rational, alternative thinking, over and over and over again until we have a new hardwired thinking that respects and has unconditional acceptance of ourselves and others and the world. Big job, but it can be done. It's been proven to alleviate stress and anxiety and to curb self-sabotaging behaviours such as aggression, avoidance, procrastination, etc. And the good news is that the brain literally rewires when your new responses give better outcomes and makes the healthier attitudes and thinking and behaviours your new automatic defaults. Apply, apply, apply. Reappraise situations and this will change your life. Thinking rationally is helpful, pragmatic, flexible and consistent with reality. Irrational thinking is unhelpful and rigid. Belief patterns come from genetics, socialization, parenting, developmental aspects, so the origins of irrational beliefs are multifaceted and difficult to determine. Nuanced differences in values also play a part in our belief systems, as you may believe you were brought up to treat others fairly, so others must treat me fairly, and if they don't, I get angry and I can't stand it. They must be completely bad to treat me this way. That's just one example. But we do have the option to think differently. The language we think and speak to ourselves creates beliefs and healthy or unhealthy negative emotions. REBT promotes taking responsibility for our beliefs so we can respond better to adversity, as in REBT our emotions and behaviours are underpinned by beliefs that increase our ability to help us or deter us from achieving our goals. It all starts with understanding your problem. Here you can see a typical cognitive behavioural model that helps us to understand how our thoughts, emotions, physiological symptoms and behaviours all interact. You will be emailed this model. Try to fill in something of your own experience. You don't have to complete it, but it can be a helpful way to think about your thoughts over the next few weeks following completion of this course. You may begin to understand your difficulties a little better, in particular what patterns may exist and how things interact. So, when you face work-related stress or adversity, whether it is a new job, a tough target, or whatever it may be for you personally, as adversity is different for everyone because we all have different goals and experiences. For example, the situation may be an interview. We're told that interviews are anxiety-provoking, but when you explore your beliefs, you can hopefully now see how you do have an influence on how you respond. We all have negative thoughts and irrational beliefs at times. They happen automatically, but the key is recognizing them, being more aware of what we tell ourselves about situations in order to feel better and move closer to our goals. If you think the interview will be a disaster, you'll feel unhealthy anxiety emotions, which cause increased stress and cortisol levels, causing physical symptoms and maybe even avoidant behaviours. You might even decide not to attend, and that's a behaviour. This unhelpful behaviour seems like the right thing to do at the time, as by not attending the interview, you'll feel short-term relief due to avoiding feelings of rejection, beliefs about not being able to tolerate a negative outcome, and feeling like a failure or worthless if it doesn't go well. However, in spite of the short-term relief, the problem remains. You need the job to achieve your goals. Therefore, you'll be stuck in the cycle until you change your unserving, irrational beliefs about the situation into more helpful ones, such as, I will try my best, but if I don't succeed this time, it will be okay. Challenging employee and manager beliefs and language is key to making positive changes for well-being and performance over the long term. Changing irrational beliefs such as, I would like to be successful, therefore I must be successful, to, I really want to succeed, but it doesn't mean I have to, but I will try my best. Sometimes managers use demanding language and will argue that it is motivating for the team. Now, it is evident that there is some potential value in acute irrational thinking, as it can be motivating in a focused task. However, when constantly used as a motivating tactic, it is unattainable and will negatively impact upon psychological well-being in the long run, making it more difficult to perform well in your role and achieve your goals. This debate of well-being versus performance has actually been well researched, and demanding tactics about performance is not sustainable. This suggests why many salespeople have, at one time or another, experienced burnout, spent time off work, struggled to stay motivated, underperformed, even become unemployed, due to the psychological pressures and stresses of working in a high-performance-driven role. Promoting rational beliefs within senior management is just as important if long-term success is to be achieved. The belief that hard work equals success is simply not true. It's a false belief that does more harm than good. Obviously, working hard is a key element to achieving success, but positive psychological well-being is also extremely important. High performance is beneficial to everybody within an organisation, but positive well-being is essential for it to actually happen. Therefore, it is important to eliminate or reduce factors that can negatively affect well-being, such as burnout and high job demands. Workplaces are social environments where employees interact, so the well-being of one member of staff can easily produce a knock-on effect. Essentially, this means that well-being does not only affect an individual's performance, it can also affect the performance of their colleagues around them. It is actually a misconception that rational beliefs are less motivating. In fact, they could result in greater quality over the long term, as better long-term psychological well-being is linked to lower stress levels, increased productivity, and greater success in your role. Being healthily motivated brings better coping strategies for overcoming adversities and bumps in the road. It may be challenging to change your beliefs or behaviours, but most of the time the psychological threat, which is what you think about what will happen in a situation, are not helpful, logical, or consistent with reality. You will only know if you face your fears and challenge your unhelpful behaviours and dispute any irrational beliefs. This will be uncomfortable, but you will start seeing more positive results over the long term. Here is a CBT model of what keeps stress going. It is a completed version of the cycle already discussed. You can see that thoughts such as "I can't cope with my job" lead to feeling nervous and worried. This can lead to sleep problems, upset stomach, feeling tired, having headaches, etc. Therefore, you may decide to take the day off work. Consequently, the vicious cycle of stress continues as now further worry, lost commission, lost wages, problems with your manager can all arise, moving you further away from your goal. To relieve stress, it could be helpful to dispute your thoughts about not being able to cope or bear it at work. You can bear it. Disputing your irrational beliefs is the first step, then challenging your urge to avoid work. Instead, perhaps talk to your boss about the problems to relieve some stress and form healthier negative emotions. In order to feel healthy negative emotions like displeasure, annoyance, concern, and sorrow in RBT, you are encouraged to avoid the four main irrational beliefs, which are 1. Rigid musts, absolute shoulds, known as demands. 2. Low discomfort tolerance, low frustration tolerance. I can't stand it. 3. Awfulizing or catastrophizing situations, thinking it will be absolutely awful, when in reality it may not be. And 4. Rating yourself as completely bad or a failure, and rating other people and condemning them for their actions. We'll now take a look at a few REBT strategies to help with disputing some of these irrational beliefs. The irrational belief I'd like to focus on first is the one known as awfulizing. Fallible humans are biologically prone and reared to see all sorts of inconveniences as awful, terrible, and horrible. Although true tragedies exist, often we needlessly upset ourselves about all sorts of hassles and inconveniences and turn them into holy horrors. Life is full of stresses, inconveniences, and misfortunes. Technology is always promising a greater convenience, but inevitably we will face inconvenience. These inconveniences can be rated or scored on a percent scale of badness, misfortune, or inconvenience from 0 to 100. This strategy is known as the badness scale. When we evaluate a bad or inconvenient event as awful, we're placing that bad event beyond the 100-point location on the badness scale. Doing so plays havoc with our emotions. It is also illogical and invalid. Most importantly, it is unproductive. When we label an event as awful, we're very likely to feel unhealthy negative feelings like anxiety, panic, anger, rage, depression, despair, shame, and self-loathing. These emotions rarely help us cope and problem solve. For example, if we see traffic jams on our way to work as awful and terrible, we will be prone to emotional upset. A traffic jam is inconvenient. Maybe we could rate it as 75% bad. If the traffic jam causes us to miss the start of work, then perhaps it is 85% bad or very inconvenient. If the traffic jam prevents a pregnant woman in labour from making it to the hospital and she ends up giving birth to a baby in a car, then the traffic jam is perhaps 95% bad or very, very unfortunate. In each case, the person experienced greater inconvenience or misfortune because of the traffic jam. However, to view the traffic jam in each example as awful is extreme and self-defeating. It lumps each unfortunate event into a limitless category of badness and misfortune that is way beyond the 100% location on the badness scale. Awfulizing beliefs stem from the demand that things must not be as bad as they are, and are extreme in the sense that we believe at the time something like, nothing could be worse, the event in question is worse than 100% bad, and no good could possibly come from this bad event. Instead of awfulizing, the next time you face an adversity, push yourself to see it as bad, very bad, inconvenient, unlucky, a hassle, a very challenging problem to be solved, but not a holy horror that is awful and terrible. Make no mistake, you can make this choice. The language we use to describe reality strongly affects our feelings and subsequent behaviour. If you want to rise to the challenges of life, you'd be well advised not to see any of those challenges as awful, terrible, and horrible. There are bad events and many great inconveniences in life. Hardship is clearly part of the human condition. Each can be ranked on a scale from 0 to 100% bad. Sadly, no matter how bad things get, greater misfortune can be imagined and actually occurs. If you avoid the temptation to make a magical jump off this 0 to 100% bad misfortune inconvenience scale when you encounter an adverse situation, you will do better at coping with the adversity you encounter. Try it and see. Now, rehearse this belief. This problem is inconvenient but not awful. I can tolerate it. It is bad but not awful. The big I, little I exercise of self-acceptance helps to overcome depreciating irrational thoughts. It helps the individual to fully and unconditionally accept him or herself, whether or not he or she behaves intelligently, correctly, or competently, and whether or not other people approve, respect, or love him or her. Put simply, it means accepting yourself, warts and all. The big I represents you, your totality, and the little i's stand for various things about you, such as the way you smile, the kind of TV programs you like, and so on. The secret of self-acceptance is to stop seeing ourselves as a single entity. We are made up of hundreds of component parts. The big I, little I exercise is this. Big I represents you in your totality. However, we're made up of hundreds of little i's. A loss does not define you, and it is not the end of the world if you miss a sale, promotion, or job opportunity. You may not always get the result you want, and that's okay. You're a worthy person no matter what adversity you may face. This exercise will also be emailed to you at the end of the course. The big I, little I exercise instructions are as follows. To fill in the big I with a few things about you. Consider what your family and friends would say are some of your good points. What negative things would they say about you? Now, what about any neutral or indifferent things about yourself? The point is, you're made up of hundreds of little I's, therefore you should not rate yourself and others in totality. Reappraisals are key to achieving elegant change. Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy, REBT, encourages people to experience and maintain healthy negative emotions when they encounter problems. Healthy negative emotions help us experience the motivation to change what can be changed. Healthy negative emotions enable us to have the poise to do what is in our long-term best interest rather than do what feels good in the short run. Some statements you can practice to overcome demands are: 1. No matter how strong my desires are, sadly and regretfully, this does not mean that I have to have my desires met by myself, by others, or by life conditions. 2. When life's adversities occur and my desires are not met, it is a struggle for me to tolerate this state of affairs, but I can tolerate it, and it's worth it for me to do so. And thirdly, I acknowledge that I am a fallible human being equal in worth to all other humans. REBT is now being integrated with other self-care strategies and techniques, such as mindfulness and exercise, to combat physiological responses. If you feel physical symptoms from stress, some self-care strategies that can help promote well-being and prevent burnout are: maintain your friendships, get regular exercise, keep a balanced diet, ask for help and accept it when it is offered, positive self-talk, plan something to look forward to, whether that be a trip with some mates or an outing, even a holiday. Get enough sleep, reduce demands, in other words, find a work-life balance, and increase resources and social support. Also, building up your self-efficacy is another way to improve your well-being. Remember all of your accomplishments to date. Write them down and reflect upon them. Your final REBT homework is to familiarise yourself with the badness scale and the big I, little I exercises following completion of the course. The key to long-term effective change is to keep practicing this approach and dispute any irrational beliefs and challenge unhelpful behaviours that are not beneficial in the long term, even if they feel good temporarily. Although a large part of this therapeutic process is understanding the process, positive change will not miraculously happen just by having the knowledge of how REBT works. Positive changes will occur over time if you take the key learnings from this course and implement them into your daily life. It will help you overcome adversity better, consequently enabling you to achieve your goals. Remember, be honest with yourself. You can think differently. You can have emotional responsibility. You can stand it. It is tolerable, and you are always worthy. Well, that's all for this introductory REBT course. By now, you should be able to better recognise any irrational language and beliefs and have some evidence-based strategies to help you dispute and reframe them when they occur. Hopefully, you've gained something of value which you can take away and use to reduce stress at work and in your personal life too. If you have any more questions after today, please feel free to get in touch.